Hello there, hello, my friends. Welcome back to the Random Show episode number 106 with your host, Agostino Zinga. Today we're trying something a little different today. So if you can hear me and I sound a little bit tinny and I sound a little bit crazy, it's because I'm using a headset today. All right, I'm using a headset. I know some of you don't like the sound of it. I'm just trying to test it for today because, I did spend 30 of my own hard-earned dollars on this headset, so I want to try it at least once for one stream. I know the sound isn't the greatest and the microphone's a bit janky sounding, and it does sound like I'm speaking from. It sounds like I'm speaking into one of those. Like, do you remember when you was a kid and they had those karaoke machines? Do you guys remember those weird karaoke machines, right? That you flip in speak into, and you can kind of like sing into it and shit. It's got like a little mini speaker. That's what I kind of sound like right now, but we're gonna persist. We're gonna keep on going, and we're just gonna hang in there. I know it sounds awful. I understand it, but please hang in there with me, okay? I spent $30, 30 of my hard-earned money in buying this flipping headset, which I thought would be absolutely amazing, would be a game changer. And then the first time I use it, people were like, change it. But I'm gonna try it for at least one stream, okay? At least one. But anyway, big up everybody tuning in. Appreciate all of you. Appreciate the live stream. Appreciate the live chat. Obviously I'm late, so apologies for that one. I do apologize profusely for that. But hey, we are where we are. Here we are. We are where we are. So, what's the deal? Many things have been going on so far. It feels like because I missed out on a lot of stuff, loads of crowd stuff happening, some stuff going on in the Bappaverse. But I feel like it's been a bit chill in the Bappaverse for the most part. Um, what's been happening? Rogan stuff. It feels like it's kind of chilled out a little bit, and there's not really been much else going on. There's been a couple of specials that dropped. I still haven't watched John Mulaney's special. I need to watch that actually and do a little review. I'll put that up on probably Patreon beforehand. So if you want to check that out, definitely sign up for my Patreon. That's coming very soon. So I'll probably be doing that in the next couple of days, if not tomorrow. So check out for that one. But it's been a bit quiet, I feel like, in the comedy space. Maybe I'm bugging out. I feel like it's been a bit quiet. I feel like it's been a bit quiet. It feels like in the comedy space, but I could be bugging. Regardless, regardless, um, here I am providing the content that I need to provide in this sort of space, and we're going to speak about a few topics that I've kind of spliced up here. We're going to get through, and a few others are probably going to get through in the next couple of days. So bear with me as I sort of like steamroll through these topics and get through them, and we're gonna just have some laughs as we usually do. Obviously, if you're watching a live stream, if you want to help out the stream, the most and the best thing you could do is to be as engaged as you always are in the chat. And of course, if you enjoy what you're seeing, enjoying what you're hearing, please make sure that you're smashing the like button for me and just making sure your algorithm knows and is in tune that I'm doing the stream, that it's going well, people are enjoying it, so it can get recommended. I don't know if that's actually the case. Maybe liking does absolutely nothing for your engagement. I don't know, but everyone says it, so I do it. Basically, there's not much else thought that goes into it. But hey, we are where we are who we are, and this is the situation that we are in. But yeah, first things first, I want to talk about that I mentioned that I kind of thought about because I saw people mentioning it on the comments of the clip that I've just uploaded. I find it really interesting. I'm finding it very interesting just seeing, and it's been kind of really odd to kind of meditate on because I've actually got the book recently. I think I mentioned it beforehand, and I'll be doing. Actually, I may even do it just now. I recently had this delivered, which is the autobiography of Joey Diaz. It's called Tremendous: The Life of a Comedy Savage, by Joey Coco Diaz and Erica Florentine. If I'm not mistaken, it's actually the comedian Jim Florentine's daughter, if I'm not mistaken. So she helped write and kind of co-write this autobiography by Joey Diaz. If you're a fan of Joey Diaz, you would know that he's been writing this for a while. It's been in the works for a long time, and it's finally got put together. I'm assuming if this goes well, more than likely he's going to be able to sort of option this for TV series and stuff coming up, maybe something else, maybe movies. So this is a lot. There's a lot of potential in this book, but I think it's just nice in general to have some guy that we all kind of know and love in the comedy scene legitimately put a sort of book together father and kind of, documenting his upbringing and whatnot and putting it into wax. So, putting it onto paper, so we can kind of go back and sort of read. So I got this delivered recently, ordered it on pre-order, and it recently dropped. And actually what I might do, I might actually just read a couple of the first pages actually and see what the vibe is saying. So it's split up into parts. It's got part 1 early years, part 2 criminal life, part 3 comedy. Let's actually read the introduction. Just to read the introduction. Read quickly. Read the introduction here from Joey Diaz's tremendous Life of a Comic Savage. So it said a comedy savage. It says, I grew up seeing firsthand what it meant to hustle. My mum never fucking skipped a beat. I tried to take a leaf out of her book, and I'll be real with you. My life became a shit show for a while when my warped motivation for hustling led me down some dark paths. Like once on my coke bender, I got so paranoid I called the cops on myself multiple times. Oh, and I've obviously kidnapped a guy, but we'll get on to that later. I didn't intend to fall on my mum's wishes, to fail on my mum's wishes, sorry for me, to be a decent American man, or to fail on the hopes for myself, but along the way I did. I failed miserably, and when I eventually found my stride in comedy, things started to take a turn for the better. My past failures became less important, less defining of my character, and connecting with my audience was all that mattered. I'd been doing stand-up for years before. I figured out the special sauce. One day I woke up and it just clicked. I started telling stories about the crazy shit I'd done in my life, not knowing how it would land. I was shocked and grateful to find that there were people out there who liked hearing them. I grew a fan base that quickly felt more like family to me than anything else. I was like their Uncle Joey. If you've listened to my podcast or seen or heard of me anywhere else, you know my life stories aren't always pretty. But that was the point in writing this book. I want to tell you as much as I can. The bad mixed with the good and the funny, with some names and minor details changed to protect people's privacy. For anyone who might be going through some shit now, my hope is that when you've done reading this, you would know that for sure that you can get past it. You can find happiness and success in your life. Trust me. I was lower than low. In fact, I was barely functioning human being at certain points, addicted to crime and cocaine, but I came out the other side. Don't get me wrong, this book isn't a sub-story. Parts are sad, yeah, but you need to hear that to understand me as a whole. We've all have our crosses to bear, and some stories from the early parts of my life are mine. As I'm writing this introduction, I'm in my home in New Jersey. My beautiful wife Terry is here too, and she's hanging out with our daughter Mercy, who I love more than anything. Later we'll all have dinner together as a family. Then I'll smoke some dope and make some notes for tomorrow's Uncle Joey's joint podcast. I'm living a dream, the dream I always wanted to live. My uncle Lazo has told me a lot about my father, who died when I was a little kid. Uncle Lazo said that my dad and I were similar in lots of ways. We looked similar, had the same mannerisms, but mostly we were born to hustle. It seems I have two parents with that mentality. Sometimes I reflect on how I got where I am, and it's really that hustle, but with the right motivation. What you'll notice is that once I found my motivation for changing my life, comedy, I just kept on showing up, day after day, night after night. I couldn't shut the fuck up. I practiced my skill, I stayed focused, and even when others parts of my life were shaky, the hustle nearly killed me in every early parts of my life, but the hustle also saved me in the end. My advice to you is to do the same. Just keep showing up, just keep hustling, keep doing it with the right intentions. Go ahead and take a leaf out of my book, besides the hard drugs and the robberies, let's say, and make shit happen. And for anyone who isn't going through tough times and pick up this book to have a little fun, let's fucking do it. I got a lot of fun shit to tell you. In fact, sitting down to write this book, I realized there's so much to say, so much I want to share with you guys that I could write 20 books based on my life experiences alone. It has been a hell of a ride. Enjoy, cocksuckers. Brilliant intro, isn't it? Brilliant 1 page and a bit intro. So a really good way to kind of intro the book. And from what I can hear so far, and breaking it into 3 chapters, I think there's far more to Joey's story than 3 probably chapters or parts. I feel like there's definitely room for more, for sure. So I think if this book goes well, if it's not going to get optioned for a TV series or for a movie, more than likely what will end up happening is that he'll probably end up writing more books. He'll probably end up putting up, maybe it'll be changed into like a hustler's motivation story. Maybe it'll be a drug prevention book. Maybe it'll be his kind of unconventional, ideas on parenting. whatever. I definitely see a scope for it. So it's kind of cool to see this happening, and um it kind of does oh really? Coiler says it was optioned before, but wrong producers. Okay, good to know. I didn't know that. That's definitely good to know that. But definitely there's some scope in this for that. I think so. And the good thing is that this kind of makes me this kind of helps comfort me somewhat, because I'm not gonna lie, that clip that I played on the previous podcast of Joe Rogan shutting down Joey did crush my heart, because it kind of reminded me a lot of um my own sort of like experience that I was kind of going through with a few of my friends, where essentially my friendships or was changing in real time, and I maybe didn't notice it, or maybe I noticed it a little bit too late, so it kind of hurt to kind of see that happening. And you can kind of see it happening a little bit with Joey Diaz, and I kind of felt sad for him, but it kind of does make me feel somewhat okay about it, because clearly, as much as Joe Rogan's moving a different direction with his life, I feel like Joey Diaz is also moving a different direction. I don't think he would have written this book or completed it or moved the direction that he's in if he didn't go to New Jersey, and he's in a whole entirely different space. He's more in a reflective mood. He's kind of maybe, I don't know, taking his licks. He's in a nice sort of space here, and so maybe this legitimately is where he's kind of seeing himself going down in the long term, because I can see him doing readings of this, going on tour, doing readings of this book, expanding some stories, maybe bringing on tour some people who he's kind of spoken about in the book. I could definitely see this being a thing going forward. And again, if you were a little bit sad and bummed out that you witnessed the death and the end of Joey Diaz's relationship with Joe Rogan the way we kind of knew it to be, I think it's nice to see that the rebirth of Joey Diaz is also taking place in this book, also in the same place or in the same space that Joe Rogan's rebirth happening with the comedy store, the new story, comedy mothership he's got. I feel like this book is a symbol of Joey Diaz's rebirth also, into whoever the person is he wants to become after this, whether it's, executive producer, flipping motivational speaker, wherever it may be. He's got definitely some decent prospects for him going forward. So really happy that I've got the book, and I kind of pre-ordered it because I don't usually pre-order books, so this is definitely a bit of a departure for me. So I'm happy that I finally got it, and I'm going to be tearing through this week, on top of all the other books that I've obviously purchased for this month as well. So really infused by it. But again, if you haven't purchased it, make sure that you do. It is tremendous. The Life of a Comedy Savage by Joey Coco Diaz and Erica Florentine. As you can see here, definitely pick it up if you haven't already. Definitely try and pick it up if you haven't already. So what are you guys saying? So far, after hearing me speak for 12 minutes, be honest. After hearing me speak for 12 minutes, I'm going to put a poll here in the thing. I'm going to put a poll here. You heard me speak for 12 minutes. I did a little reading, right? I did a real little reading. What do you think? Um, should should I change? Should I no, headset. Headset change? Yeah. Should I change the headset? Should I change the headset? Yes or no? Quick question here. Let me see. You heard me speak for 12 minutes. Is it that bad I should change back to the microphone, or is this good? Let me know. Let me know. Yes. Already straight in there. Let's see what you guys say. 12 minutes and I don't want to batter your ears. 5 votes. Yes. Yes. Oh, Jesus Christ. Okay, it's looking like a resounding yes. 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 Yes, 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 yes. Oh my God, 9 votes. Yes, look at that. It's not moving at all. Okay, cool. Lesson learned. Lesson bloody learned. Let's see, 11 votes in. 90% to this. Okay, cool. Okay, okay. So for you guys listening via the podcast, we are going to be changing to my microphone now and taking away from the headset. So if you've been hearing this and you've hated the sound, please do not cry, do not complain too much. We're going to go back to regular scheduled programming. Give me 2 seconds and we're going to switch this out, and we're going to switch this out. There we go. There we go. We're back to regular scheduled programming. Oh mate, honestly, big up the stream chat for always being brutally honest. The final result so far, from what I can see, is like 87% of people said yes. Change the headset. Change the headset. Please change the headset. 87%. You guys hated it, innit? But thank you for hanging in there and letting me do a reading for 10 minutes and absolutely brutalizing your ears. I do appreciate the patience. I do appreciate the patience. I really do. And I do apologize for subjecting you to that easy sounding microphone, man. It's absolutely annoying. I paid fucking 30 card hold dollars for that fucking headset and it sounds like absolute dog shit, doesn't it? It sounds like I'm speaking into a fucking tin can with some string tied between the both of them. It's absolutely horrendous. But hey, what can we do? What can we do? I try to be hands-free. I try to be one of these cool kids, you know what I mean, with like a headset. Yeah, man. But unfortunately, headset life isn't for me right now, isn't it? I'm too used to speaking into these really decent pod mics. You get me? You get me? So anyway, moving on from that, let's end the poll here. Make sure that no one else can vote here and kind of break my heart. Let's get that out of the way and let's get back onto the show. So, first thing to talk about, first things first, let's just jump right into it, right? Jump right into it, right? Let's go talk about this. I think this is a really good one to talk about, right? Because I feel like there's nothing wrong with this approach. Let me see if I can find a timestamp. It's here, right? Yeah, let's go here. I think it's around here. Let's go here. So, it looks like Andrew Schulz was recently on. Is that the guy called? I think his name is ARIAN Foster. Is it ARIAN Foster? Is that his name? I forgot his name. Bear with me a second. Is that his name? ARIAN Foster. I think it's ARIAN Foster. What's his name? ARIAN. Is it Foster? Is it Foster? Is his name Foster? Yeah, it is. ARIAN Foster. Cool. ARIAN Foster and PFT. So Andrew Schulz was recently on ARIAN Foster, right? Talking to Andrew Schulz was recently on macro dosing, which is a show I guess on Barstool with ARIAN Foster and PFT from Barstool also. And he asked a very interesting question, I thought, regarding Rogan and how other comedians see Rogan. And I thought, to be fair to Andrew Schulz, as much as this sounded a bit cucky, I thought his answer was fairly was a fair answer, fair reply. As much as people think it was sucking up, I thought Andrew Schulz answered this the best way that he could in terms of describing Joe Rogan's influence and on comedy and how he's kind of looked at, by other comedians, despite how big his podcast is. And I've got some interesting thoughts on how we kind of see the thing. So let's play the clip here. Again, Andrew Schulz reveals how he writes stand-up, courtesy of microdosing with PFT and ARIAN Foster. Let's go.
Go.
But I've always, as a comedian, like, I've been on Rogan. Yeah, I know him kinda. I think he's a cool cat. Do comedians look at Rogan like a comedian?
So, 100% yes.
Okay.
But you have to understand, like, a lot of...
Okay, just on that intro alone, how refreshing is it to hear somebody speak about Rogan in just that kind of general, yeah, he's cool, I guess, kind of way? Because I feel like in today's society, because everyone is so polarized and so much on either end of the flipping scale, it's either you think Joe Rogan's a hack and he's shit and he's a waste of space, overrated, or you suck his balls more than anybody you know in your own flipping world, right? In your own flipping family. It goes too much on either side of things. So I feel like his kind of like nonplussed in the middle kind of like, impression of Rogan and not being too overawed by the celebrity, the notoriety, the influence, or whatever it may be, is kind of refreshing. And it also makes me think overall, this is a weird tangent to go on, but I wonder if that's the reason why Rogan seems to click more with the guys that he does Save Our Parks with. This with what's it called? Mark Normand, Shane Gillison, Ari Shafir. Because at least with those three guys, when they come on his pod, they don't mind teasing him. They don't mind making the butt of the jokes. They don't mind having their own inside jokes and kind of talking amongst themselves and shooting the shit. They don't go on Rogan like acting like he's a deity, right? Like bowing at his feet. They just fuck around and fall around. Maybe that's why he has more fun, because legitimately everybody around him is basically like a Schultz or like a Brendan, where they licking his ass continually. And it gets a little bit boring. It gets a little bit tiring. It gets a little bit lame. Whatever. You just want to spice it up a little bit. So maybe that's why he likes to Save Our Parks guys a little bit. And maybe why also you might see Arian Foster on the show again soon, even though he said on this podcast he doesn't think Joe's funny. Maybe Joe actually enjoys it when people are actually a little bit, quote unquote, mean to him, or unfazed by him, or unmoved by him, or just act normal to him. Because in his everyday life, no one acts normal to him. Let's continue.
People found out about this is what happens when you're podcasting. When you're someone who doesn't know comedy, or you're not like a big comedy fan.
Right.
I legitimately thought he was going to say, if you're a civilian, you just don't get it. Well, that's what he's going to say. Civilians just don't understand how funny Joe is, but other comedians get it. It's like, oh, come on. But he didn't say that. Let's continue.
The most potent version of someone, and obviously, he has the biggest media platform on the planet.
Yeah.
Like, it was just a crazy time in history where like one guy could garner that type of influence. Yeah. And
Andrew Schultz wishes he could go back in the time machine and be Rogan in it and create a podcast back when he was starting. He wishes he could have just, instead of wasting time trying to go on MTV or successfully get on MTV and stuff and being a TV guy, he wishes he would have put all his efforts into podcasting super early. He probably doesn't it.
It's like a comedy fan, like, just to put things in perspective, Bobby Kelly, amazing comic. Bobby Kelly. Mm-hmm. So
he doesn't know Bobby Kelly.
When he was on our pod, he was like, dude, I remember coming up in Boston and seeing Rogan and going, I want to be that guy. So that was the influence that he was having in that space, right? He just happens to be so famous at another thing, right, that some people only get that version.
It overshadows it too.
Think about it, of course.
Yeah, because like
he's not saying it the way that Schultz is saying it though. Now I hear what he's gonna say, because I think Schultz thinks he's agreeing with him, but he's not. He's not agreeing with him at all. Listen to what Arian Foster says about Rogan's comedy.
In the realm of comedians, I think he's an okay comedian, but like, as a podcaster, he's one of the most influential podcasters of all time. So it's like hard to parse that.
And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think what Arian Foster is saying here is legitimate, true, and it's not a bad thing. But I also think it's weird, because with Joe Rogan, having watched a few of his specials and stuff, I would say, and just some bits and pieces of him acting and whatnot, I would say, really controversial opinion to say this, but I would say his earlier stand-up was way better than what he does nowadays, when he was looking like some Jersey Shore guy, right? He had a full head of hair, he looked super cute, really handsome, little earring in sometimes, I think, or those shirts on and shit. He looked fairly fun. I think he was way funnier back then, but I think over time, his kind of version of funny on stage isn't really for me, or isn't my cup of tea. But I don't think he's unfunny. I think people that go all the way out there and say Rogan is just not funny overall are being a little bit harsh. I think maybe his type of comedy, that humping a stool thing, the noises, the physicality of it all, the kind of, intermingling some of his topics that he talks about in the podcast into stand-up bits, it can be not your thing, but you can't say he's not completely funny. Like, he's got definitely a lane. And I feel like if you like that kind of comedy, you'll be into him. But I also feel like Rogan should be, he should be more up-and-coming comedians' idol or inspiration than like the likes of Chappelle, the likes of Dave Attell, the likes of Chris Rock, the likes of Eddie Murphy, or whatever else. He should be way more of a motivation and a North Star, because I feel like Rogan has willed himself into being a legit stand-up. Like, he just went at it like he does everything else methodically. right? Every single day getting up, every single day writing new material, every single day reviewing and kind of fine-tuning what he does. Like, he approached it in a really kind of relentless way, to the point where he kind of forced and willed himself into being a stand-up comedian. And I feel like there are more people out there who are similar to Joe Rogan than there are people that are out there similar to Louis C.K. I feel like those kind of like top tier comedians, they sort of like exist on their own little kind of place. It's really hard to kind of emulate them. It's really hard to kind of try to follow their path because they're just really good. Like Chappelle, you know, starting when you're a teenager, it's just impossible to kind of catch up to that level of funny, or to even emulate it or copy in any sort of meaningful way. Talent's talent. But I just feel like somebody like a Rogan, where maybe his God-given talent isn't to do stand-up. I feel like just because he was obsessed with it for so long when he was younger, he kind of immersed himself in it fully. He's clearly a student of the game. He clearly watches people's special. He's clearly tapped in, all that sort of malarkey. I legitimately think that should be way more of a model people should be following than trying to follow what Chris Rock does, trying to follow what Eddie Murphy does, Dave Chappelle, all these guys. They're just, you know, those guys are just talented from the womb. It's really difficult to try and emulate that, in my opinion. And I feel like being a very successful podcaster and also being able to parlay that into stand-up isn't a bad thing either. Like, who wouldn't want that? Who wouldn't want to have one of the biggest media platforms in the world where you can signal boost and, you know, effectively garner more eyes onto what you do, potentially help to build up your fan base? That could also kind of segue into people buying cold hard tickets to come and see you perform somewhere. Not such a bad thing for me personally. I don't think so.
Part as a consumer, I think that's what the internet has done more than anything, is it has allowed people to wear different hats. Yeah, but still, it's really hard to part that out as a consumer sometimes.
Yeah. No, I mean, you got to watch Joe do stand up. Like, I think I tell people you have to go watch Joe do stand up. Joe is underrated at stand up.
Oh, really?
I think what happens sometimes, you become so.
I like how the people within Joe Rogan's circle have an inability to understand why some people could just look at Joe objectively from the outside and just not rate him. Not rate the podcast, not think he's funny, and just be like, not for me. They just don't understand it, because for them, he's the greatest thing walking since, you know, whatever. And I feel like that, for me, is maybe the main reason why some of these guys can be a little bit insufferable, because they don't come from it from an objective point of view, or just, you know, would maybe plead the fifth or beg to differ and just kind of keep it moving. But they don't. But on one side, on the other side, sorry, I also understand this, because if you're Andrew Schulz, and legitimately, you'd have to say Rogan for sure was responsible for the success that he's now getting, partly. Because I still maintain that Andrew Schulz's first appearance on Rogan, where I think he's wearing like a tracksuit jacket, I think it's like a red and blue one, I feel like that was maybe one of the best debuts of an up-and-coming comic ever on Joe Rogan. Like, he came on there on fire. He was the right combination of combative, the right combination of funny, the right combination of witty, insightful, smart, that it really kind of warmed. He kind of quickly, in a short space of time, really built a connection with Rogan, to the point where Rogan fucking, you know, was at his wedding. You know what I mean? Like, that's how quickly they became friends. I feel like it happened within a very short period of time, maybe less than 5 years. So he really did do a good job smashing it and going on there. But I feel like a lot of that kind of combativeness he had and kind of playfulness he had with Rogan disappeared over time, because he saw the influence and the impact Rogan was having in his career, because he was a certain level of a comic. Then he went on Rogan and his career just like balloon. Do you know what I mean? Obviously, he kind of did the hard work by creating the content and shit, but Rogan, I feel like overall, is probably a platform that helps people out the most who are already creating content. If you're already creating content, if you already got stuff going on, if you already have quote unquote pots, you know, pots and pans on the fire, and then you go on Rogan, he can legitimately help to amplify what you're already doing. And because, you know, Schulz was already on this whole kind of social media, content creation, marketing type of tip, you know, whatever he was doing, going on Rogan definitely helped to kind of propel and, you know, help to add to whatever he had going on there. So he definitely utilized it the best way. So it's no surprise that he would be going out of his way to defend Daddy Rogan, because Daddy Rogan legitimately paid for the wedding, Daddy Rogan legitimately paid for the honeymoon partially. Daddy Rogan legitimately paid for people's salaries in that studio. Like, he legitimately changed this man's life. So I can kind of understand and appreciate why he would be on defense mode when it comes to Rogan. But as a viewer on the outside in, it does make me it does make me have a little bit of sick taste in my mouth seeing these men go out of their way to defend another man like this. Like, I don't know, comedy's meant to be a little bit renegade, a little bit risque, a little bit naughty, quote unquote. And these guys, when Rogan's name is mentioned, the way they kind of buck and twerk and just go over, bend over backwards to defend him is kind of gross. I'm not gonna lie.
Famous that people are looking for things
Yeah.
to pull down.
Okay.
Right? And they can't say shit about the pod.
Yeah.
Because the pod is number one. So they just got to find something where they could pull you down. You got to watch Joe. And like, with everything to lose, with more to lose than most people in history have ever had, still doing the wildest shit.
Gotcha.
Excuse me? Like, I should never take away his good. Schulz said Rogan has the most to lose out of everyone in history. Excuse me? Let's rewind that once again. Again, this is why people hate Rogan. I think Rogan has a similar issue that, a Beyonce has, or like a Taylor Swift. No one really is annoyed by Taylor Swift or Beyonce. It's mostly their fans. It's like Nicki Minaj, same thing. The Barbs and stuff. They can get annoying after a while. These kind of stan fandoms, right? These fanatics that go out of their way to, inflate things and say this person can't do no wrong, defend them when they do horrible things, just really horrible, and just, whatever, right? They just become annoying. The same thing with Rogan. Rogan isn't that bad. The podcast is one of the best out there still, even to this day, especially when you get some good run of guests on there. He seems like a pretty chill guy considering how wealthy and influential he is. If you gave, like I say it all the time, if you gave anybody else in that community of flipping, JRE extended universe comedians the same amount of money that Rogan has and influence and power, they would be absolute tyrants. Legit. We already see some of these guys already going crazy because they make, a certain amount of money on Patreon. They got a certain amount of music on YouTube. Just imagine if they were Rogan level rich. So Rogan's fairly chill guy across the board, I feel like. He has his errors and his faults, but he's pretty chill. The thing that makes people not like Rogan are his flipping fanboys. Those are the things that really make people hate Rogan. People like Schulz who can't be objective, can't maybe understand why some people don't like the show or don't really rate his comedy too much, and say these hyperbolic, crazy statements as if Rogan's the only person to ever have anything to lose. And what the fuck is he talking about? Let's play it again.
Just got to find something where they could pull you down. You got to watch Joe. And like, with everything to lose, with more to lose than most people in history have ever had, still doing the wildest shit.
Gotcha.
If anything, I feel like that's a real mischaracterization of Rogan, because if anything, Rogan actually is the epitome of fuck you money. He's got enough money where he doesn't need to go on stage and do flipping 10 minutes here and there or get some time. Like, he doesn't need to do all this stuff. He doesn't need to do anything. He could just rock up to any club that he wants to perform when he wants to do it, personally, if he wanted to. But the fact that he commits himself to this kind of grueling profession where you get on stage and you're only as good as your last performance, and you put yourself into the scrutiny of millions of people by recording specials that, basically get cemented in time regardless of how good or bad they are, is quite commendable. Because anybody else with his level of wealth would be sitting in Cabo somewhere sipping on Mai Tais and whatnot, right? And just enjoying life. That's what they'd be doing. They wouldn't be doing what Rogan's doing, voluntarily doing flipping stand-up. And he's got other things that he does, like sitting on his ass talking to a microphone, that probably make him way more money. He probably makes, you would imagine, I think so, probably way more money podcasting than he does doing stand-up. I could really accept, especially before you open up Comedy Mothership, I would even accept and be happy to believe if he said he legitimately makes more money recording podcasts than he does doing fucking stand-up comedy. Or he probably makes more money at the UFC, regardless, he doesn't even do many international dates. He probably makes more money salary-wise there than he does fucking recording, than he does doing stand-up comedy. So clearly he's doing it for the love. Clearly doing it for the love. Maybe a lot for the attention also, but I think more so for the love of the craft and wanting to get better and whatnot and feed the fans, blah, blah, blah. That's actually commendable of him. Not the fact that he has more to lose. The fact that he's got everything and he's still doing that shit.
The comics
the wildest shit.
Yeah, I remember he he was the dude that called out Carlos Mencia, right?
I remember.
Look at Schultz.
Yeah.
Look at Schultz. Do you think you could find a clip? Do you think you could find a clip of Schultz smiling the way he's smiling now, talking about Rogan the same way that he's talking about his wife or his family? That's the thing that's a bit sickening with these guys. Like even the Brendan thing, right? Like you saw how he was sobbing and crying over fucking Crystalia being accused of being a legit diddler, right? And whatnot. Do you think those guys would react anyway to their own family members, you know, having something crazy happen to them the way they react to these people who they've met in their adult years? Like Schultz has only known Joe, in a somewhat friendly manner for 5 years, and look how much he makes him smile. Like he legitimately puts a genuine smile and giddiness in these guys' faces and hearts. It's absolutely incredible.
I remember he was the dude that called out Carlos Mencia, right?
I remember that. Yeah,
that was very fun. Who do we have on Part of My Take we were talking to? But was it was it Santino?
Anyway, that's a clip for the most part. I don't really have an issue with Schultz defending Rogan the way he did, because hey, Rogan did really help his career. But I do feel like if you're out there and you don't think Rogan's comedy is that great, but you feel like his podcast is amazing, that's a fairly accurate, I think, review or opinion of what he does. Because for the most part, I feel like a lot of his stand-up success has been because of how popular his podcast has been. I'd imagine a lot of people that listen to him perform stand-up probably listen to the podcast also. I would imagine there's a Hulk. I don't think there's many Joe Rogan stand-up fans that aren't also fans of his podcast. I don't think they exist. Whereas I think many comedians out there have fans who maybe don't tune into their pod a lot, but like to see them whenever they're in their town. So but like I said, I think Rogan's real superpower and something he should be commended for is definitely his relentless pursuit to be a professional stand-up comedian, despite maybe not being naturally as funny as the people that we all know and love. I feel like that should be something that a lot of people should be taking inspiration from. But I'm sure if you hear that sort of thing, it kind of sounds like a backhanded compliment a little bit, So I can kind of understand why he probably wouldn't be so, down with or sorry, or cool with people saying that to him. But hey, what can I do? Severe Design says, yeah, I get what you're saying, but my concern is what's the 300 pages of evidence? Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, that's just my opinion on it. I'm sure I'm wrong, but hey, you got to throw out your little 2 pences here and there. And of course, we need to move on to this bit of news because I've missed out on it and I've been slacking and super out of the sorts of it. But most of you are aware, about 5 days ago, a video got leaked online. I'm guessing courtesy of Steven Crowder's ex-wife, who wanted to set the record straight, despite Crowder coming out and it felt like getting ahead of the story when he put out that little clip essentially speaking about how him and his wife were divorced, had been divorced for I think a year now, it felt like, and behind the scenes Candace Owens, of all people, was putting her proverbial flipping stiletto on his neck by essentially blackmailing him and whatnot, over the flipping footage or whatever it may be, or just the fact that he was divorced in the first place because he's this Christian conservative dude who speaks about the sanctity of marriage, and now him getting divorced could be seen as an L, which I don't really understand anyway, all the flipping hyperbole about that. But I guess the fact that she was putting her foot on his neck about it was definitely something that we should have logged in, or should have logged in our mind. Anyway, the first round of details to come out of this was the video that went viral, that was showcasing Steven Crowder being very, very, very mean and rude to his wife, and especially when you consider at the time of this video, this ring video, she was like 8 months pregnant, clearly very, very pregnant in this video, belly protruding out there, and clearly, in the space where you'd imagine a man would kind of go out of his way to make sure that she's feeling comfortable in any way, shape or form, and make sure that she's looked after and her needs are covered. And Steven Crowder decided to be a bit combative. So this is a clip. We're going to play it through, and then I'm going to give you my opinions, and then we're going to continue to the other parts of the story.
Boundary. I drew a boundary. No, you just did it. I drew a boundary of abusive and cruel. You were not taking the car. Because if you refuse to do wifely things, then I will go pick up the groceries. There's no steaks, wood pellets, my grill. I know it's not a reasonable request, but I'll go do it. How about you first? Hillary, how do you respect the man? Yes. How do you man? How do you man receive love and respect? No. How do you man respect? No, you're not taking the car.
Stephen,
you're not taking the car.
Stephen,
you are not.
Then I will ask them to pick me up. Would you like me to ask?
Oh, that's right.
That's Stephen.
Give it an Uber.
Okay, Stephen, I can't.
The fact that Steven Crowder is telling his 8-month pregnant wife at the time to get an Uber and that she can't take the car, like, is legitimately one of the most insane things I have seen in my entire life. But I'm just wondering overall, just wondering aloud, like, what is it with these guys? What is it with these guys who kind of preach this message of family, of having wives, of having children, who, you know, try and basically paint themselves out to be the perfect, you know, family man, beast of a dad, who behind the scenes are legitimately horrible people. I feel like some of the most important people in their lives and their careers, because I feel like in general, and again, this isn't to be a simp or to cuck up or to kind of, what's that word called, or to pander, but I genuinely think that the partners, whether they're male or female, of prominent content creators, political, what's that? How do you say? Political speaker type people, podcasters, stand-up comedians, whatever it may be. I think their partners are legitimately some of the most, honestly, in my opinion, some of the most important people in the industry, because they allowed them the ability to go and stream for a number of hours while they look after the flipping household, while they look after the kids, the pets, whatever it may be, right? They go out of their way to do so and let the other half go and do all that kind of fun content sort of stuff and hold their houses down. They legitimately do. So it's just interesting to me how many of them are so awful to their partners behind the scenes, and how often, and how what's that word you need to use, how this doesn't feel like a one-off thing. This doesn't feel like something that, you know, is something that we haven't seen before. I'm sure this happens in many other households of many other of these prominent people that we all kind of know and love, and some of them will probably disappoint us if we find out who they were. I'm sure of it. I'm sure Steven Crowder isn't the only person in that space who treats their partners like this behind the scenes. They all do it. And I'm just really bemused why these guys seem to do this, especially when you consider the important role these partners play in their careers. Because without them, I legitimately think these people won't be able to have the careers that they have, because it's quite nice to do your content, to do whatever you're doing, perform on stage, go on tour, knowing that back home, whoever you're with is basically, you know, holding down the fort, as Joe said to Brendan, right? Really looking after the family so you can go out there and be kind of carefree and be loose and be fun on stage. That's an important part to play, an important role to play also. Let's continue.
Feeling some constraints?
Steven.
Like, I can't
Steven.
go. Listen to me. You want to walk out right now? Listen to me. I can't go to the gym. I can't go to my parents. I can't call my friends.
Bitch.
I can't be home. You're gonna take the car and leave me here. Hillary, just think of how boxed in you've made me.
What do you need me to pick up? I'll get it. I'll be back when I'm back.
Imagine being a grown-ass man. Imagine someone that you rate. Imagine you think of yourself as an alpha male, and you're happy to sit in your flipping, sit in your garden with your feet up on the table, smoking a cigar in the sun, and letting your 8-month pregnant wife go out and do the shopping and pick you up something while she's out there. Imagine being happy doing that. What kind of man does that? Like, imagine, what kind of man is happy to have their wife go out there 8 months pregnant while they have their feet up? She's bending over, struggling to get the fucking trolley or the fucking car out of the flipping, whatever it may be, put the coin in, like all that hassle. And you're at home just puffing on a cigar, chilling with your feet up on the table. Disgusting. Disgusting.
No, that doesn't work either. You'll be back when you're back. That doesn't work either. Do you understand the difference between one light being set to the second and you going?
What was that?
Do you understand the difference between one light?
Pick up. I'll get it. I'll be back when I'm back.
No, that doesn't work either.
What was that sound? It's funny that he sounds as annoying as he does when he's doing his show as he does behind the scenes. He has the same inflections and he speaks in the same condescending, kind of like arrogant way. Like, I don't know, maybe in my head I thought he sounded softer. You know, some people have like, I don't know, let's think of somebody controversial. Yeah, like Alex Jones. Some people say, oh, Alex Jones, man, behind the scenes, it's actually really nice, you know. He actually comes across really calm, really chill. He's not always shouting at you, right? It's kind of always a nice surprise when you hear those type of things. Oh, wow, this Alex Jones guy behind the scenes is just like a well-mannered, chill dude. But when the cameras turn on, he turns on his persona of Alex Jones. But it's funnier when these guys are exactly the same as they are on camera behind the scenes, because you think to yourself, whoa, if Alex Jones is like the way he is on camera when he's on InfoWars, he must be a nightmare to be in the house with. He must be a nightmare to be married to. He must be a nightmare if that's your dad or something, right? Day to day. If that Alex Jones persona comes home with him. Same with the Steven Crowder thing. Like, that fucking Ever, that, what the fuck was that? He's trying to toy and tease with his heavily pregnant 8-month pregnant flipping wife at the time, emotional at the time, also sensitive at the time, whatever she's going through, right? Physiologically, bodily, right? And here he is kind of teasing her, probing her, like, oh my god, this is awful, man.
You'll be back when you're back. That doesn't work either. Do you understand the difference between one light being set to the second and you going, I'll be back when I'm back? You're making sure. The only way out of this is discipline and respect. If the only way out of it is we're at an impact.
You're at an impasse.
Legitimately, right? He's only getting away with this because he's Steven Crowder. I can't imagine in my entire life if I tried to tell a girl that I was seeing, hey, what did he say? What's the line he says here? Oh, let me see it. Where's the line? It's there somewhere, isn't it? Oh, no, don't load that. Please, I beg, this thing doesn't load. Look at what is it. Hold on, let's see here. Oh no, it's loading. Okay, cool. Quickly. Bear with me. Okay, cool. I'm just saying, I just think part of the reason why he's getting away this is because of flipping he's Steven Crowder, because I don't think any other girl in my life would allow me to say discipline and respect. And she would still be there when I got back from the shops, or when she got back from the shops. Or she would never come back, actually. This is legitimate.
The difference between one light being set to the second and you going back.
Discipline and respect, like what?
The only way out of this?
The only way out of this is discipline and respect. Can anybody in the chat here think of anybody else? Anybody else? Can you think of anybody, whether it's a man or a woman, right? Whether it's a he or a she or a they or a them, that would allow you to say that to them and you're still in a relationship the next day? Can you think about how long you'd be in a doghouse if you spoke to your partner this way? The only way out of this is discipline and respect. Just trying to get a woman that you're in a relationship with to acknowledge that she may have been wrong in an argument is hard enough. Right? A legit argument that you feel like maybe a debate or a difference of opinion, you feel like you're legitimately in the right. Trying to get a woman to fucking acknowledge that is a fucking landmine. It's hazardous, right? It can legitimately go either way for you. Imagine uttering the words, the only way out of this is discipline and respect. Whilst you have your feet crossed with a cigar in your hand. Mate, I would have got shit thrown at me by this time. Do you know what I mean? Come on, man.
It's discipline and respect. It's the only way out of it, or we're at an impasse.
We are at an impasse.
Good. Because you can't have any discipline or respect.
You can't have discipline or respect.
There you go. You throw your hand, you give up so easily.
I don't give up, Steven.
You give up so easily.
Also, a little note here, just to kind of, I've just watch this again. Have any of you guys noticed how much they're whispering and how low they're talking? I know the volume isn't the greatest because it's a Ring camera, but it sounds like they argue often in the house, and maybe neighbors have called the police on them or had someone come over do a welfare check or something. I feel like they're both very conscious of not screaming or shouting or being too loud. It could be because they've got other kids in the house who are sleeping. Maybe that's the case, or maybe the kids' room is behind them. But it feels like they are intentionally not speaking too loud, and that's really also kind of sad that this is kind of a daily occurrence. Beforehand, they were always arguing, always screaming at each other.
I just said the only way out of this is discipline and respect. You said, then we're at an impasse.
Steven, no, we are at an impasse, okay? I love you, but Steven, your abuse is sick. Your abuse
Watch it.
is sick.
Your abuse
Watch
is
it.
sick, of course.
Fucking watch it.
Watch it. Honestly, I swear to God, man, some women, you guys put up with way too much. I legitimately can't think of any girl in my entire life I've ever dealt with who would let me get away with saying, you need some discipline and respect, and telling her to watch it. I can't think of one where it would run, where I would literally be able to speak to her the next day. I can't think of it. Or even the same day. I can't think of it. These ladies let these guys get away with murder. I swear to God. Watch it. How dare you watch it? Watch this. I'm not coming back. You know what I mean?
I'm gonna let go. I'll get what you need me to get. And I need some space. We need to just stop engaging a little bit. Okay? I love you. I love you very much.
I don't love you. That's the big problem.
Jesus
I've never
Christ.
received love from you. And the fact is, when I go, look, I need you to do A, B, C, and D, you just be disciplined about it. You go, no. But I love you more than life itself. Okay. Put on some gloves. No. But I love you more than life itself. That's not fair. That's not fair, and it's disingenuous. Hillary, you're right. We're at an impasse. Become someone that's you need, day in and day out, worthy of a wife. No, not as a wife. I didn't say
A wife worthy. Become a wife that's worthy of love. Can you? What? Honestly, I would love to know the context of this argument. And I know couples argue all the time, but honestly, what would possess you to want to speak to your wife at this moment in time, who's 8 months pregnant, in this way? What surely could have let them get this way? Surely there should be a point where you're like, you know what? Let bygones be bygones, babe. Let me get you. Let me drive you. Whatever it may be, do something just to kind of squash this, because this is just insane.
As a wife,
Hillary, come on now.
I'm not gonna engage. I'm not gonna engage anymore. I'm gonna go. I'll get text me what you need. I'll get you what you need.
Honestly, the fact that Steven Crowder can't afford or doesn't want to give, not afford, that's for sure not true. The guy's got money. The fact that he doesn't let his wife drive her own car is pretty sickening, to be honest. What do you think his explanation for that could be? Does she not have a license? Or of course she does, because she drives a car. But like, there's no explanation that would make that make sense. Especially when you consider that I don't think the studio's at his house. Maybe I'm not right here, but I don't think he films Louder with Crowder at his own home. I think Louder with Crowder is filmed somewhere else. Yo, big up Austin Casey for the $5 donation.
Did you hear the allegations that he exposed himself to male staffers?
Yes, Austin Casey, you read my mind. You read my mind, brother. It's coming. It's coming. Big up you. Thank you for the $5. I appreciate it, brother. It's coming right now. It's coming. But just to finish that point, he doesn't record Louder with Crowder at his home. I don't think so. He's probably recording in the studio, and he's been doing that show for a long time. So there's no reason why the wife shouldn't have a car if he's gone like 8+ hours a day or whatever it is that they do the show. It's pretty crazy that she doesn't have her own car, and there's definitely a reason for it, and we all know what it is. Control. He wants to make sure that he knows where she is at all times. She can't leave the home. She has to stay doing motherly, wifely things and looking after the kids and cooking and cleaning, whatever it may be, or whatever the reason is. He just doesn't want us to have any level of independence in the slightest, which is pretty nuts.
I love you. I'm committed to you.
Put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm not gonna.
Are you committed enough to do those things? You're not committed to anything. You're not committed to anything.
Oh yeah, but big up, Natashki, big up you. You definitely called it from a while ago. Us Crowder. Again, my Crowder radar has been off because I don't really watch much of his content. Apart from that debate me table stuff that he does and the man in the street stuff that he's doing at college campuses, I've not really engaged with him that much apart from that stuff. And that stuff is, I feel like, his best representation of him, because I feel like he does really well in those panel discussions. He comes across pretty well. But I feel like everybody else that watches his actual show, Louder with Crowder, says that he comes across like a bit of a piece of shit. People said that from the beginning. And I feel like from the time that he went on Rogan and Rogan kind of made him cry and shit, and the whole like running away from Sam Cedar and the debates and stuff, I think overall it's just interesting to see that people on the internet, viewers like yourselves and chats and stuff and commentators and people on social media were saying that Steven Crowder was a piece of shit from day dot, before they had any evidence of what he gets up to behind closed doors. And it's just interesting that it's been proved right. And it goes to show that in the land of content creation, or in the world of content creation, if you do this long enough and you do this consistently enough, it's pretty difficult to hide who you are. Like, it's pretty difficult. If you're a piece of shit, people can kind of sense it and they can kind of tell. You don't need to say too much. You don't need to act a certain way, but we can just tell. It just comes off of you. It's like a stench. It's like an aura. It's like a whatever, something about you. People could just sense it and think, you know what? There's something not quite right with that guy. And I'm just funny to see how so many people on the internet called it with Steven Crowder before they knew anything about his family life, anything about what his wife has to suffer with behind closed doors, before they knew anything about how he is as a boss. Everybody kind of felt there's something odd about Steven. And this is, again, outside of anything people may think of him being whatever he is outside of his relationship and what he does up, you know, I'm not talking about that, just him as a person. I just find it interesting how the internet called it. That's definitely a W for social media and the internet at large, for sure.
You just said I love you. I'm committed to that. Walk the dogs, put on some gloves. Walk the dogs, put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm gonna just
Walk the dogs, put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to get the medication the dogs take? No, you take Betty.
So as Crowder heads inside, as Crowder's head inside, Steven gets angry and angrier, and by his own admission screams, "I'll fuck you up," at his pregnant wife Hillary, who then flees their home. So I'm assuming this was one of the final fights that kind of, you know, one of the final nails in the coffin, and then the kind of separation was agreed upon. The funny thing that I've read so far about the separation was that, if I'm not mistaken, what's funny about it is that she actually separated from him, but he was trying to separate from her in the beginning, but he just didn't file it in time or something. So like, he wanted to obviously have the bragging rights of saying that he broke up with his wife, but she just got in there quicker, which is absolutely hilarious to kind of see that play out in real time. But the really funny part of it has definitely been, in my opinion, real funny part of it has been this update featured in the New York Mag. Right, just recently, as of just a couple of hours ago, this just broke all over social media. This is really, really interesting, because what it proves is that the original video that Steven Crowder put out, where he says, you know, Candace Owens has her heel on his neck and is basically trying to extort him in a weird way because she has information about him and his divorce and whatnot. So he came out and just said it, and he made it seem like his wife just wanted different things and he was really upset about it and wanted to stay with his wife and blah, 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 blah. Right? If this was the case, I always thought that kind of first video was definitely him trying to preemptively get in front of the story, and for sure there were other bits and pieces coming out. And then when we saw that guy, I forgot his name, that was formerly on Louder with Crowder, go on a few podcasts and speak about how much of a piece of shit Crowder is as a boss behind the scenes, it kind of felt like there was rumblings going on of other people coming out saying other things, and he basically got wind of it because most of these pieces the journalist will usually reach out to the person accused and get comment from them. So I'm sure he got wind of it that way, or just other ways through media sources and whatnot. And he went to preemptively get in front of it and maybe try and kill this theme and the steam of the story. But it didn't work. This is courtesy of New York Mag. The Intelligencer says Steven Crowder exposed himself at work, ex-staffers say. The funny thing about this, right, of him exposing himself at work, the only funny thing about this is that this directly plays into the narrative and to the theories out there that Steven Crowder is an alleged closet homosexual or something, or bisexual at the least. This plays into it because if he's exposing himself at people he works with, at Louder with Crowder, and if you've watched the show, you would know there aren't many women in that studio. I don't think there's any, actually. I think it's all dudes. So the only people he's exposing himself to are other guys he works with. So whatever kind of narrative he was trying to run away from being accused of being gay or being bisexual, he's not running away from it if he's going around allegedly exposing his little winker to people he works with and all male flipping staff. It's pretty nuts. Let's read it anyway. Conservative provocateur and YouTuber Steven Crowder has been having some problems ever since he declined what he called was a slave contract. I love the terminology. Oh, it's just unnecessary. Why would you say that? They offered me $50 million. They want me to be a slave. It's like, what? Oh, fucking Americans, I fucking love you guys. Isn't he Canadian? I don't know. It doesn't matter. Let's continue. $50 million to join Ben Shapiro's Daily Wire operation in January. Amid Crowder's messy divorce, a video from 2021 has made public last week, which he yells at his wife while she's 8 months pregnant with their twins. Crowder, who has complained of no-fault divorce laws where he lives in Texas, scolded her for not behaving in wifely manner and refused to allow her to use their car. In a statement from his soon-to-be ex, Hillary, he claims that he has been engaging in mentally and emotionally abusive behaviors for years. She claims that, right? Which makes a lot of sense. So I think the mentally and emotionally abusive behavior is, I think, way worse than the physical one, especially if you're Crowder. Like, it's hard to come back from this sort of type of thing. But hey, while Crowder denied the claim, a report from the New York Post on Tuesday described allegations from 10 former employees who say Crowder oversaw an abusive company where he continuously harassed them. Chief among them are allegations that Crowder would often expose himself at work. I can definitely see this happening because of all the skits they do where he dresses up as people, especially women. He seems to love those a lot, right? But just in general, I would legitimately can see him being the kind of person who, like, you know, likes to maybe dance around when naked. It kind of reminds me of this other guy. Oh yeah, Bryan Callen, right? That kind of need to kind of like perform and dance, right? And just kind of be a little bit cheeky. I feel like kind of Crowder has the same sort of thing in him. So big up Bryan Callen for having a fucking talent for spotting and aligning himself with absolute shitbags, right? There's a moment where Callen legitimately thought he had won a midlife or, you know, end of life flipping lottery by scoring the gig to kind of work on Louder with Crowder and be their kind of comedic sort of voice on there, right? And he was kind of flexing his muscle on the T-Fat-K. He was being a bit more snappy to Brendan, answering back and shit, wearing different clothes, wearing cologne, putting shoes on instead of those shitty sandals. He looked like he was having a great time. And now look, it's not even been a month yet since he's been working for Louder and Crowder, and now he's being accused of all this shit. Oh, I fucking love it. It's fucking hilarious, man. These guys are all such pieces of shit, and they all just get away with it, but it's funny just to see for the time being. Anyway, continues. In March 2018, Crowder and his crew were driving in a van. This already sounds like a scene out of Bang Bus or something. Crowder and his crew were driving in a van when a former producer he liked to call Not Gay Jared. Oh yeah, I remember that guy. He's one of the first ones to leave, wasn't he? Not Gay Jared's one of the first ones to leave, and the other guy, Quarter Black something, right? Quarter Black something. Those are the first two guys I remember leaving. I'm thinking, rah, how come those guys? They were like legit OGs, isn't it? Like, I remember him, not Get Jared and the other guy, Quarter Black something. They were the first two guys to leave. Anyway, let's continue. Oh, this is fucking gonna be great. He liked to call Not Get Jared, fell asleep in the back row. Stephen was in front and he was joking about what he was going to do, a witness said. He climbed over and dropped his junk on top of Gerard's shoulder. The same ex-staffer recalled that Crowder had exposed himself to Gerard in 2017 while they were filming a parody version of Ghost. So while Not Gay Gerard is sleeping in the back, minding his business, he would flip him, pull out his winker and drop his nuts on his shoulder. It's nice. Great boss. Never met him. And on the flight in 2018, a different employee claims they saw Crowder put his testicle on one of his childhood friend and assistant, John Goodman. Another employee remembered that Crowder had showed his genitals to Dave Landau, a comedian and former co-host, who called Crowder a bully last week. So Crowder doesn't have a type. He just is a bit of an exhibitionist, it looks like, right? Maybe that's his kink. He likes risque. What's that called? What are they called? What do they call it? It's not voyeurs when you look. What's it when you flash? Is it flashing? Is it no? Yeah, because peeping Tom, you're looking. Voyeur, you're looking. What's when you want to expose yourself? What's that called? It's a kink, isn't it? It's a bit creepy because usually the guys that do it have like tan coats and go to fucking children's playgrounds and shit. So it gets a bit dicey. Exhibitionist, is that what it's called? Exhibitionist, yeah. So he's got that kind of a kink in him. It looks like he just wants to kind of shock and whore, or maybe he thinks he's doing a skit. He's doing like a Jackass skit or something, right? Maybe he thinks that. I don't know. Landau claimed that Crowder installed a Dave don't talk button on the show to get him to be quiet on air. At first, I took it as him trying to be friendly or one of the guys. Now I see it as a power play. God almighty. So everybody's seen flipping Crowder's dick, basically. Everybody. Crowder allegedly sent production assistants to do his laundry and could be unreasonable micromanager who would make wild requests after hours to set people up for failure. The laundry thing, I don't think is a big deal. I think they're basically, this is unnecessary to add to the article. I think if you're an assistant, part of what you do as an assistant is dry cleaning, picking up coffees, depositing checks in banks. That's not that big of a deal, in my opinion. But I'm sure he's the kind of person I'll be telling you, use this type of detergent. I want it dried in a certain way. Only go to this flipping laundry mat. Only have this person deal with it. I don't know. All those kind of unnecessary nonsenses. But doing the laundry as an assistant shouldn't be that far-fetched or crazy because that's basically an assistant's job. But I can't imagine a worse occupation to have than being the, personal assistant of fucking Steven Crowder. Like, no, God help me. I'd much rather work for fucking Ben Shapiro than Steven Crowder, for sure. Even though he probably wouldn't like me because, black and shit. We continue. Who would make wild requests after hours to set people up for failure? Ex-staffers claimed that he would regularly berate his team and threaten to fire people on the company's Discord channel. He sounds a bit like Brendan, isn't it? He's given a bit of Brendan in terms of how he acts like as a boss. Really interesting. It's giving Brendan Schaub. House socials. He's talking to them on his chat, on DMs. He's talking to them on Discord. Crazy. He even went after his own father, Darren Crowder, per one source. Darin. What kind of name is Darin? Madness. Per one source who claimed Crowder would yell at his dad. He's one of those guys who shouts at his dad in front of people. One of those kids. I fucking hate you, Dad. Fuck you, man. Dad. No, Dad. Like, what could they be arguing about? Like, if they agree politically on many things and cultural issues, what could they be arguing about? I can show my dick to who I want, Dad. Who claimed Crowder would yell at his dad in front of employees. Darren did not respond to the post for request to comment. That's a real dad. That's a real OG pups there. Even though his son is flipping, takes the piss out of him and shouts at him in public and shit, he still kept his mouth shut and didn't snitch. Good dad. It says here, I'm shocked, but it's pathetic what he did to Hillary, a former employee said regarding the video of Crowder yelling at his pregnant wife. That might not be the Stephen you see on the show, but that was the real Stephen. So he keeps it hidden, but they didn't see it. Okay, cool. I'm not surprised, man. I'm not surprised in the slightest. This sounds very on brand. But again, I find it hilarious that he's been silently fighting the allegations that he may be allegedly a closet homosexual. And then the story comes out that he loves to flipping show off his little nutsack and his little twinkle to his flipping staff members, allegedly. You know, that invitation, you know, and all the staff members are men, right? It's pretty hilarious how you try to fight the allegations and then some of the allegations come firing right back at you. I find that fucking incredible. But the most weirdest thing I found in this whole thing was what happened soon after the first video drops. So after the first video drops, or the video from the Ring camera, Steven Crowder decides, right, for some reason, I don't know why he decided to do this, and I feel like this is legitimately one of the most unhinged things I've seen in my entire life, but he decides to put this video out in response to the Ring camera video coming out. Think about it, right? The original video where he's crying, he's mentioning his kids every single minute. It feels like, I wish I had a counter if I had time to mention his kids. The safety of my kids. He's basically trying to say, without saying, that Candace Owens is a cold-hearted bitch for getting his kids involved, and whatever issues that they have, they could have dealt with it privately, but her bringing up the divorce is going to harm his kids. That's the thing he kept on kind of badgering on about. And of course he kept on kind of slipping up and saying things like, oh, you know, my wife shouldn't be getting divorced from me. The fact that we live in this shitty state that lets her get divorced from me is horrible, which is strange anyway, right? The fact that she has free will, it kind of been, you know, befuddled Steven Crowder. But I thought this response after the Ring camera video dropped was legitimately unhinged. The Ring camera video drops, he looks absolutely crazy, and instead of maybe taking it on the chin or maybe just keeping stum about it, he decides to go on the offensive and say this about his wife. This is nuts.
I commented on my ongoing divorce on Tuesday, requesting privacy in the best interest of the family, but also by court order agreed upon by all parties. Look, broken marriages are ugly, and in them people do ugly things. Myself, of course included, I would never claim otherwise. However, due to recent misleadingly edited leaks to the tabloid press without context and not subject to consequences of the court, well, if not privacy, the next best option is truth. So today, I have filed a motion to officially unseal all files as they relate to the matter of legal record. Finances, relevant medical records, including mental health history or evaluations.
Did you hear that? He's willing to unseal his wife's mental health records, which I'm assuming will somehow say that she might have some mental health issues, in order for him to win in the court of public opinion. That's the only reason why he's doing it, because he feels embarrassed and he feels exposed. He wants to essentially expose and subject his flipping ex-wife and the mother of his children to abuse online by unsealing her medical records and whatnot. That's what he's willing to do. The same guy that was crying about the safety of his family was saying that the safety of his kids and his, you know, was the paramount thing. He's now basically putting his kids in danger and harm himself by doing what he's doing now. He had a rare opportunity, because he came across terribly, to come across maybe somewhat decent by just taking it on the chin, letting it slide. She released the video. She did what she did. It is what it is. You maybe agreed to not do that beforehand, but she did it. And just keep it moving and kind of deal with it in the courts. But he can't do that. He's that much of a piece of shit that he's willing to expose his wife like this. What a bizarre way to defend yourself. This bizarre way. And I'm also interested to see what the context is missing there. Because I know I saw a video of Destiny where he said the video was highly edited and chopped up. But I'm sure that was just because whoever uploaded it wanted it to be, you know, snappy and shit. I don't think they edited the video to make Steven Crowder look bad. I'm sure there's context to it. No one's denying that maybe Steven Crowder didn't have a flipping, you know, no one's denying he had a toxic relationship or marriage. For sure, it looks like they did. Because even just the fact that they were whispering during when they're arguing leads me to believe that they had a lot of arguments in the household. But it doesn't kind of take away from the fact that Crowder comes across looking awful as a husband and as a person. because of how he's treating his, at the time, 8th-month pregnant wife. That's just not how you go about doing things. Even if you are at the end of your relationship, it's just there's just a way that you speak to people and act with them and just treat them in general that, you know, he wasn't displaying at all there. So no amount of exposing, unsealing radio records is going to change that, in my opinion. He still comes across looking like an absolute douchebag, personally. But again, what do I know? But another interesting thing I thought was really interesting or really weird, and maybe you guys' interpretation of this is really different to me, but don't you guys think when Crowder got into the next show, after the video leaked, after he put out his flipping, you know, statement and stuff, his next episode of Louder with Crowder, right, was really bizarre because Bryan Callen was on it. You would think Bryan Callen would try and avoid any kind of bad press or any negative association, considering how his career is like hanging in the balance, right, with all the scandals he's been through. You know, from the rape allegations to his best friend in comedy, Chris D'Elia, being accused of being a flipping pedophile and shit, and whatever it may be, and a diddler, and, you know, his career going down the pan, and the Brendan thing and the Bobby Lee thing. You think Bryan Callen will be a little bit more careful about who he associates with, right? But no, he turns up for work at Louder and Crowder again, and on his first day back after everything that's transpired, for some reason, for some odd, bizarre reason, right, Crowder think it's appropriate to get Bryan Callen to say this weird joke, which I didn't understand why he did this, but I think now, having seen what we've seen about Crowder and read what we've read and seen what Dave Landau said, this feels like a bit of a power play as well. Like, hey, if I'm going down, you're going down with me. You've already got rape allegations on your jacket, so you're going down with me. Look at this joke that he makes Callen say on there.
7+1. This is this week's...
Oh, it's not on screen for some reason. Let's get on the screen. Bear with me 1 second. For some reason, the video is not loading on the screen. I don't know why. Let's get it working again. Bear with me here. Bish bash bosh. Hopefully it works now. Refresh the screen. But I thought this legitimately was one of those sort of like, hey, you're going down with me. Don't think you're getting off this flipping ship easily, mate. You hitch your wagon to me, we're going down together. This is pretty sick.
7+1.
Let's birds again. Bish bash bosh. Put it up on the screen here. Okay, cool. Let's get it. It's just small. I don't know why it's doing this, but we'll just use this anyway. Look at this video. Look at this clip.
7+1. This is this week's 7+1 things progressives say before and possibly during sex. Number 7, Bryan Callen. Let's kick this off.
Be gentle. I haven't decided if this is rape yet.
Oh, yeah.
Jesus
I think we need a little more volume on the 7+1 there.
Look at Bryan Callen's face. And look at Steven Crowder's face. Let me just get this off the screen first so you can see it. I'm going to zoom into this properly because this video is acting a little bit choppy. But look at Bryan Callen's face. He looks so uncomfortable, but he has nowhere else to go. He doesn't know where to go. He doesn't know where to look. His career's already hanging by an absolute thread, so he must do the joke the way the fucking Crowder wants him to do the joke. And big up whoever in the Fire and the Kid uploaded this. This is courtesy of individual map 884. Big up for uploading this. Jesus Christ, this is so uncomfortable to watch in real time. Really absolutely crazy. Let's get this going again one more time. Look at this. Look at this. Look at this, mate. Look at this. Come on. Load up, you absolute donkey. Don't do this to me. You there? Are you there? Come on, son. Come on, son. There you go. Okay. See, look at this. I've got too many tabs open, mate. Page unresponsive. Page unresponsive. Wait. Come on. Load up. We've got to see Steven Crowder do this nonsense. Okay, cool. There it goes. Load up again. Let's go to the beginning. Look at this one more time. One more time all the way through. Look at this. This is legitimately one of those, if I'm going down, you're going down moments. This is what it feels like to me. This is, again, the first show after everything that's transpired. You know, him putting out that video, trying to get ahead of things. Candace Owens burying him in her own way. The Ring video coming out. Him firing back saying that he's going to expose his wife for being a psycho behind the scenes. Candace Owens came back again saying that he had selective surgery or cosmetic surgeries for his chest because he was afraid to look at too much like a bird's chest, whatever it may be. And the first show back, he decides to force Callen into making this very crude, very unnecessary, and very inappropriate, considering Callen's position, rape joke.
7+1. This is this week's 7+1 things progressives say before and possibly during sex. Number 7, Bryan Callen. Let's kick this off.
Be gentle. I haven't decided if this is rape yet.
Oh,
look at Callen's face.
Yeah, that's
the same smile, or the same kind of dead behind the eyes smile Callen had when he was trying to apologize or explain why he did not rape anybody based on the allegation in the LA Times article, right? That kind of like manic sort of like crazed smile on his face. That's the same thing that he had. That dead behind the eyes smile of like, oh shit, we're going there. Oh shit, it's really over. Oh shit, I'm not coming back from this. Oh shit, I've got to ask my dad for money again. Right? That's the kind of thing that he was in. And Crowder has the kind of mischievous, see? I told you. Look at Crowder's face when it plays. Look at Crowder's face.
I need a little more volume on the 7+1 there.
Yeah. Look how happy he is. Crowder's legitimately happy that he got flipping Callen ensnared into his flipping vortex of absolute degeneracy. This is what these people are. Absolutely heinous. But again, Callen only has himself to blame. Callen only has himself to blame. Or an absolute shit show of a situation. All in. And I think the final kind of part of this, which I don't have a clip for, but it's all the things about him getting plastic surgery or getting some sort of cosmetic surgery because he was born with some sort of condition that means that his chest looks a certain way. It kind of has a bit of a concave in it, and I guess because he works out so much, he didn't feel like his chest looked good, and he wanted to basically get it to look great, and he decided to have some sort of surgery that could kind of help him with that. But then when he was on stream or when he update videos, those dramatic ones he was doing where he was in hospital bed and shit, he was making it seem like he had some sort of heart issue when that's not what he had. It was some sort of cosmetic surgery, which is classic sort of right-wing grifter sort of shit in it, right? Always a victim, always trying to flip and paint the narrative and make it seem like it's something else. So what can you do with that? But yeah, crazy situation. I'm not gonna lie, I don't feel bad for Callen in the slightest. I feel like anybody with a brain, many people online, especially commenters and stuff, were saying that Crowder was a bit of a wrong'un, and I feel like depending, especially when you think about what Callen's gone through, him trying to hitch his wagon to Crowder was dumb. And even if Crowder wasn't a piece of shit, the fact that Callen tried to spin himself as some sort of right-wing sort of comedian guy was really dumb, because he's not that guy anyway. He doesn't really hold any true conservative opinions, beliefs, or anything along that kind of way. He's only now trying to do the right-wing grift because he got cancelled, and the only people that will engage with people who have been cancelled or have some sort of mature grown-up debates about cancel culture are conservatives, right, in kind of media or in content creations. When it comes to flipping the left or people that he was kind of associated with or liberals, whatnot, they just don't want to have that conversation. They just kind of write you off. So of course he's going to align himself with those people, but it doesn't mean he actually believes it. He does not believe it at all. The only people that will talk to him, he tried to latch his wagon onto it, and now he's paying the ultimate price, because now you would imagine, considering everything that's going on, more than likely he's gonna have to depend on the fucking generosity of Brendan for a long time. Now that the situation is the way it is, it really is gonna be like that. You'd feel like that, I think so. But anyway, what can you do? Bryan Callen kind of did it to himself. Bryan Callen kinda did it to himself. And on that topic, actually, I need to get up this post someone posted on the Friday Kids subreddit. I feel like this is very, very interesting and kind of speaks on this whole topic of fucking Callen, Ongs, Ladder, and Crowder, and maybe speaks about why he ended up in that position in the first place, and why someone like him has been around for so long, has been a consummate, basically, loser, right, in terms of kind of getting his career where it maybe should be on track and whatnot, right? This is courtesy of yeah, this is a courtesy, of course, of the Fire the Kids subreddit, right? And someone posted this, which is a kind of collage and a gallery of all of Callen's failed podcasts and projects that he's done on his own. And I think it's missing one particular show, Mixed Mental Arts, that he used to do with this guy called Hunter Matz, who sounded like he was a bit on the spectrum and whatnot, but it was actually a pretty decent show. I used to listen to it before. But what we have here on screen, we have the Bryan Callen show, right? His own podcast that he used to host that he doesn't do anymore. A show he did on YouTube for one, I think, episode called Cruising with Callen. I think this is done maybe during the lockdown. I think so, if I'm not mistaken. It might have been launched around then, where the whole premise of it was him filming a flipping podcast in his car. He's driving around. I don't know why he's driving around. Maybe going to pick up coffee. Maybe going to scour the streets for some, for some up and coming actresses and shit. I don't know. But this is what it was called. And I think he made it in one episode, Cruising with Callen. And then the third shot we got here is the most recent show that he had that was actually quite well produced. It looks like he put some money into it, which is called Best of Bryan Callen, where he'd essentially do different sort of activities with various people, I guess experts in their field, kind of his kind of version of like a, I don't know, nature show or discovery show or whatnot. And it was actually kind of well done, I think, overall produce wise. And he just, of course, abandoned it after a while. And as Coyle mentioned in the stream chat here, the Bookless Book Club is also another one. And that whole Bookless Book Club, if I'm not mistaken, was him doing a book club where he would review really important books to him or important books in history, and offer like short, snappy reviews or synopsises of the book and topics he can kind of expand on. I don't know, whatever it was. It didn't last. He didn't even do one, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Not even one was done. So for all the things that we say about Brendan Schaub, and this is a point that I need to make for people, because I think this is something that you need to give Brendan Schaub credit for. For anything that we say wrong about Brendan Schaub, one thing you have to say for sure is that Bryan Callen would be legitimately only dependent on his dad if Brendan was never in his life. Because one thing we've seen with Bryan, when he has to do something on his own and he doesn't have a co-host or somebody else co-producing the show with him, and he doesn't have, and he's required to do everything kind of quote unquote on his own, he does not know how to do anything consistently or do it or kind of show up every day for it. He just doesn't. He just kind of leaves it halfway done, or sometimes doesn't even follow through it, which kind of speaks to maybe his overall career. And it kind of makes you think overall, like, how has he been able to survive so long in Hollywood, not being able to just do stuff on his own and kind of always needing somebody to kind of hold his hand. So as bad as Brendan can be sometimes, his ability to keep the T-Fat-K machine running, to make sure that show's getting pumped out every single week, it's got sponsors, it's got ads, there's cover art, it gets loaded onto YouTube in the right way, it gets loaded onto the podcast platforms in the right way. It's definitely a credit to him, and it allows Bryan Callen to come in, sit down, shoot the shit, and go home. He doesn't do anything else in terms of preparation or distribution or anything of that podcast, which is why I also think it's fairly reasonable for Brendan to say, hey, because of that, I'm taking 70, you're taking 30 from the T-Fat-K earnings. Because Brendan, he doesn't personally do everything, because we know he doesn't have a computer. He doesn't like to upload, I guess, anything really on YouTube, I'd imagine. But in terms of overseeing everything that goes on with stuff concerning Thick Boy and T-Fat-K, he does so much that I think it kind of is within his rights to say, hey, I deserve 30%. I think he's well within his rights, because Bryan Callen is fucking useless. Legitimately useless. Outside of just sitting on other people's pods or doing other people's shows and just collecting the money, he clearly can't do anything on his own. And it's a real shame, because somebody like Bryan Callen has been on the scene for a long time. He was passed at the Comedy Store, around the same time that Rogan was, right? Maybe when they were in their late 30s or something. He's been in the entertainment industry. I would hazard a guess he's been in Hollywood in some shape or form since his 20s, maybe even younger, and he's now in his 60s. Someone like that, if he started even the podcast, even if it wasn't that good, even if it wasn't, Joe Rogan level, Mark Maron level podcast, even if he just started something and kept going now, he would be far, I think, further in his career and way richer if he would have done that podcast at the same time those guys were doing them. Again, if you look back at old episodes of JRE, you'll see Bryan Callen there when they were filming the odd podcast in Rogan's house and random studios and shit. Bryan was there, but he never had a show that he did on a consistent basis that fans could kind of latch onto and get involved in. That was something that he was kind of be doing that he could maybe pursue later on in life. He didn't have it. The only thing that was consistent that kind of came in and saved his life was the Fire and the Kid. Which is why I remember the early parts of the Fire and the Kid was had to come in a bit successful. The running joke would always be that, whenever Brendan goes around Bryan Callen's friends, they always secretly kind of pull him to one side and say, "Oh my God, we're so thankful that you came into Bryan Callen's life, because before you came to his life, he was legitimately walking around aimlessly, not knowing what to do next in his life, because he exhausted at that point, I'm assuming, the charity of Daddy, so he had to kind of find his own way, but he was struggling to find it. And then Brendan came along, they helped create the fucking T-Fat-K, and then that kind of blew up and helped both of their career, but more so Bryan Callen, because clearly, as you can see from the slideshow, he doesn't have a hope of doing anything on his own. He's utterly useless. Legit utterly useless, which again I think is a real sad indictment on him as a person, because he should be definitely be enjoying the fruits of this podcasting success and seeing that all those guys have been feeling. And again, like I said, it doesn't have to be Rogan level comedy, it doesn't have to be Rogan level podcast, but he for sure should be doing something around that sort of realm. You would think so, but hey, what do I know? Moving on from that one, we got this quickly I want to mention regarding the comedy Mothership. Have you guys seen this on their page, right? They have featured the one and only ERIK Griffin. And I was wondering, right, if you're Brendan at this point, you must be punching the air, innit? You must be punching the air, because I know many people on the pod, many people on Reddit, actually on Joe Rogan Reddit, actually have said, I think people as well on the Fire and the Kid Reddit have even kind of admitted that ERIK Griffin's actually really funny in person. Everyone kind of says it. And I think this is something that many people probably would agree with. And I feel like if you're ERIK Griffin, it's safe to say that most likely the reason why he maybe isn't at the level that he probably thinks he deserves to be, maybe is partly due to his attitude. And the fact that he kind of can come across a bit dour, a bit negative, a bit of a whinger and a whiner. And people just don't like that, right? They just don't warm to that personality whatsoever. And it might also explain why Bobby Lee wasn't that enamored with following through with doing a podcast with him, and instead, ended up doing the podcast with Andrew Santino, which, if you're looking at it and you're kind of paying attention, may have contributed to the fact that, ERIK Griffin and Bobby Lee aren't the bestest of friends that they were before. But everyone's always said the Sky stand-up is great. But still, the reason why I bring this up is to say, ERIK Griffin had a little weekender where he headlined at flipping Joe Rogan's comedy club, and if I'm Brendan, I would be annoyed only because ERIK Griffin was never really in that Rogan inner circle. I know he appeared on Rogan before, but whenever I remember hearing him speak on podcasts, he always sounded like he never really liked that crew of guys. And again, this is really interesting because I think ERIK Griffin is one of those kind of people that doesn't really want to admit that his principles or morals or the way he views people has kind of changed now that he's gotten a bit older and that he's married and may have a kid in a way. His priorities are different. So maybe the guys and girls he wouldn't have hung out beforehand with, he's now doing it because some of them are paying him in terms of Brendan. And maybe being associated with this guy is kind of handy, like Rogan, even though he maybe wasn't a fan of that whole crew and they were kind of holding court at a comedy store, because being associated with them is going to help him in his career going forward in order to kind of, make more opportunities, to make more money, to whatever it may be, so that he can kind of, support his family and whatever little offspring he may have coming up. This makes a lot of sense. But he doesn't want to admit he's in a weird sort of space. But if you're Brendan, after everything that you've done, after all the sucking up, after all the flipping being on the show and whatnot, all the random appearances, the many, many appearances, it must be a little bit disheartening to see somebody like an ERIK Griffin, who was really on the outside looking in, going on podcasts, going on other podcasts, complaining about complaining about the kind of boys club and the sort of like, how everybody was acting around the Comedy Store, and if you weren't in a particular crew, you didn't get any love. And that same guy who felt kind of disregarded and overlooked is now one of the first people to do headlining set in the opening year of Rogan's Store, the comedy club over there in Austin. That's gotta hurt if you're Brendan. That's gotta hurt you a little bit. Even though Erik Griffin is far ahead of Brendan in terms of his career, in terms of being funny on stage and shit, and just a seasoned stand-up comedian, so you shouldn't be too surprised. But I think if you're Brendan, you should be a little bit upset. You should be. And I don't understand it if you're upset, because Rogan legitimately told you to quit comedy. Told you to quit flipping UFC to pursue stand-up comedy. Then you finally do stand-up comedy. Maybe it's not to the level that everyone else is doing, but you're giving it a go. And then when he opens up his first flipping, store, his first club ever, big deal, he then doesn't invite you over there because suddenly now you're not funny enough. Whereas this is my theory. I have a theory that if Joe had opened up his club in LA and never moved to Austin, Brendan would have performed there already. I feel like Rogan moving away to Austin was the perfect excuse for him to distance himself from people that he felt like he couldn't distance himself from them beforehand. Maybe he would have felt guilty, maybe they felt bad, but moving physically somewhere else gave him the ability to put some distance between people he didn't want to hang about anymore. And then opening the club and having Adam Egert be the quote-unquote booker for it, the face of it, the shot caller, and him kind of, divert, basically saying, hey, go to him for the booking, was also a clever ploy to make sure people didn't come to him all the time. But he's in charge. As much as Adam Egert's in charge, Rogan's in charge also. So that's got a sting. That's definitely got a sting. So as much as I would love to rag on flipping Brendan about this, I think if I'm Brendan, you're within your rights to be annoyed. Personally, I think you're within your rights. A little bit in your rights. But again, being up Erik Griffin, I think if anything, this goes to show that if you are legitimately funny and you kill it on stage, that you will probably get further in life than if you just try and suck ass and shit. Because I don't think Erik got this show because he's now friendly with Brendan or because he does the Golden Hour. I don't think so. I think he got this weekend at the Comedy Store over there, at the Comedy Mothership in Austin, because Rogan rates him and because Adam Egert rates him. Simple as that. I don't think any other reason he got kind of called up on it, because he's not really friendly, I feel like, with those guys. It sounds like from him complaining on podcasts and shit, unless something changed. So clearly, they just think he's funny and they wanted to put him up there. So I think this is definitely a cautionary tale to a lot of those up-and-coming stand-up comedians over there. Don't waste your time trying to be Rogan's best friend. Instead, try and be really good at what you do. Try and be undeniable, and then hope and pray that somehow down the line that can help you get to where you want to get to. But this whole sucking up to Rogan so that he can put you on has gone. It's finished. That era is over. It doesn't exist anymore. Be good at what you do. Actually be funny. Actually be worth giving a damn about. And then maybe, quite maybe, possibly, you could get to where you want to get to. Possibly. But again, what do I know? What do I know? What are you guys saying here in the stream chat before I continue on here? I think the only reason why they didn't move to Texas was because his wife's saying no, because she knows divorce will go better for her in California. Flora, I wouldn't go that far. I don't think that's true. I think all of you guys and girls out there who have this impression that, Brandon Schaub's wife is going to divorce him sometime, she's never divorcing him. I'm sorry. I hate to kind of bring this up all the time, but she's never divorced. She's not going anywhere. A lady like that, from what I can see looking from the outside in, there's no reason to leave. Why would you leave Brendan? Legitimately. Especially if you are somebody like her who maybe doesn't want to work, maybe can't work anymore, or maybe just has, big gaps in your flipping experience. Where are you going to suddenly get a job now that will basically allow you to live the lifestyle that she wants to live? Right, driving Lamborghini Uruses and having Birkin bags and going on all expensive trips to Las Vegas and fancy shopping and shit. Like, it's impossible to do that on your own as a single mom somewhere trying to hustle your career. So I think she's within her best interest to stay with Brendan.
I've always said that my impression is that, you know, being you know, a Mexican lady from Guadalajara, as Brendan would say, and also somebody that clearly is somewhat religious, they take marriage over there seriously, right? If you're Mexican and you're somewhat religious and you got married in the church or whatever, you had your vows in whatever, like, they take marriage seriously. So there's the idea of divorcing somebody isn't something that they do willy-nilly, sorry. So this idea that you're gonna divorce him, I don't think it's happening. At most, I also think if you're gonna do this whole fan fiction thing, I would believe in this scenario that most likely they have an agreement where, hey, don't embarrass me in public. But obviously, Brendan, being the redact that he is, he just can't help it because he's not very smart. But I think for sure they've had a conversation. Hey, just don't embarrass me in public. Do what you want to do on road. I'm sure she's not dumb, that lady. She knows, you know, he's on the road all the time. He makes, you know, he's even said it on podcasts before that he makes sure that he, you know, stacks up his dates so that he can be away as long as possible to not be around the kids, have to look after them and shit. It's a joke sometimes it's true, who knows? But I'm sure she knows that, you know, stuff happens on the road. Maybe do on the road, make sure it doesn't come back home to our doorstep, and I can kind of look the other way. And obviously, if I need things, give it to me and don't fucking give me any lip back. If I want a new Birkin bag, you pay for that shit. If I want a new car, you pay for that shit. If I want to take my girls out to Las Vegas and see a florist, you pay for that shit. I think that's their agreement, personally. Which means divorce is not happening. Never, ever, ever. So anyone who guys think, oh, they're getting divorced, it's not happening. Because anyone that has a particular type of way they like to be treated in a relationship, if that's the case, she would have got divorced a long time ago. There's no reason why you don't get divorced from somebody after the whole Trug Walk saga, the whole Kalila. Like, the Kalila saga was worse enough. That should put you in the doghouse for a while. If you've been sending DMs to one of your comedians, one of your friends in comedy's wife, girlfriend, close to a wife at that time, messages. And I think Kalila said he sent those DMs to her about her tits in Christmas or something. So Brendan was with his family allegedly having Christmas dinner, opening presents, and sending DMs on the slide to fucking Kalila. You know, I'd imagine your regular woman would that would be an issue. Maybe not divorce, but definitely doghouse. It may change the dynamic of the relationship forever, but the fact that that didn't really do much says everything it needs to say. Not including the Trug Walk thing, not including the DMs, not including the live streams, message, letter thing to the woman in the crowd. Like, how do you explain that and make that make sense? What lie you have to spin? Oh no, I was giving her my car because she wants to do an internship. Like, what? Oh, I was DMing her to, I don't know, to check what size bra she wears to buy you something. Like, what? You know what I mean? Like, how do you explain that and make that make sense? So I feel like if she was gonna leave, she would have left already. The fact that she hasn't left just means that she's cool with it. And I feel like people should stop trying to hope for that divorce thing to happen, because it's not happening. Never ever happening, in my opinion. Never ever ever. She's staying for the long term because, unfortunately, and quite sadly to say, she has nowhere else to go. That's the real be and end all of it. She has nowhere else to go, in my opinion. And much people say alimony, cool, alimony is what it is, but if you want to have that lifestyle forever and ever, it's like, come on. You need that person to be around, so, you know, making sure that they can fund that lifestyle. So yeah, she's not going anywhere. But anyway, moving on from that one, this is an interesting topic or interesting clip to play. Courtesy of the Find the Kid subreddit again, which is really interesting here. It features Rogan sitting down with Dave Smith, and they speak about the comedy Mothership, and I guess Dave asked something along the lines of like, has it been hard saying no to people who want to perform at your club? Because, you know, the comedy Mothership has now turned into the place to be, or the place to perform. Austin's the place to be. It kind of, when I hear them talking about the comedy Mothership, it sounds a lot like how DJs talk about Berghain, because especially, you know, Berghain's kind of the pinnacle of club design, and it's obviously it's kind of like one of the best bigger clubs around in the world that kind of can do the whole thing of booking really big A-list DJs and also booking kind of really cool quote-unquote underground people. And I feel like with Joe Rogan's comedy Mothership, it's done the same job, with the ability to kind of have some of the best appear there, and obviously some cool up-and-coming talent. So with that, you'd imagine with Joe Rogan being the head honcho, he's now in a position where he's probably got way more people offering than slots. So how do you say no to people? But I found this clip really interesting because some people are suggesting, yeah, big up Uche for $10. Appreciate you.
I got a dip, I got plans, but awesome stream tonight as Crowder a Batman for real, and SCHULZ mustache looks like it smells. Big up you and the gringo poppies in chat.
Yes, big up Uche, no problem. Thank you for hanging in there. I appreciate you. I appreciate you as always. Enjoy whatever else that you're going to do, my dear, my G. Have safe travels, and I'll see you again very soon. And appreciate the $10 donation there, my G. Big up Uche once and for all and always, actually. So let's play the clip here. Rogan talking about saying no to people at the comedy mothership.
It has been a problem though, because there's a lot of people want to come, and some of them are just people are weird, like that want a headline, and that they know. Like, that you're not really a headliner. Like, what are you talking about?
I have a theory that Rogan doesn't like confrontation. That's my theory. I don't think he likes confrontation, or no, I don't think Rogan likes to explain himself. That's the theory. No confrontation. Explain himself. So I feel like as much as he tries to be kind of matter of fact, say what I mean what I say type of guy, he also doesn't like to explain himself, or maybe he's hurt people's feelings. So in this business that he's in now of owning a comedy store, he's now having to turn people down. And he just, like, why are we having this conversation? You know what I mean? He's like, and I know you're not good enough, or you're not a headliner to you shouldn't be performing here. That's the space that he's in. But I guess because he's done people so many favors by having them come on his show, I think, what was I thinking? I wonder, right, if the podcast has contributed to this. Think about it this way. I wonder, right, if because Rogan is so hospitable and so free and so open with his platform and brings anybody on, whether you're like the smallest of the small, you had a little viral clip somewhere, there's a possibility you get on Rogan. Anyone and everyone's been on there, from the highest celebrity to somebody you don't really know too often. I wonder, right, if people see that he does that sort of thing on his podcast and have now sort of, copy and pasted that onto how he would act or should act in terms of his comedy club. I wonder if that's what's going into this. So a lot of comedians are saying, hey, you have random people on your flipping podcast. Why not have random people perform at your comedy club? It's no different. They're probably thinking that also. Maybe that goes into it. But this also feels like it could be a subtle, ever so subtle dig or reminder of somebody like a Brendan. And it's funny because if you're Brendan, I feel like, maybe this is weird to say. If you're Brendan, admitting that Rogan told you you're not funny enough and you need to step it up before you can perform could be a bit of a win, because if everyone loves a comeback story. So if you're able to kind of say it and kind of take it on the chin and say, yeah, oh man, I'm really gutted. I tried to get a gig there, but Rogan said I'm not quite ready there yet. So, I'm going to put the work in, but it looks flipping amazing. I can't wait to finally get to a position where I'm able to play there. It could be quite nice. It's a good challenge to have, because it'll be the first time you'd imagine he's going to have to kind of prove himself in comedy, because everything else he kind of got through default of being Rogan and Callen's friends, and then of course partly because of his celebrity himself and the success of the podcast. So maybe along the way his achievements were never really kind of there was never a sense of satisfaction you'd imagine if you're Brendan and you had those kind of achievements, I would imagine, because you feel like everybody's always kind of giving them to you. So maybe if Rogan says to you, hey, go back to the drawing board, get funnier, and then you can come play at my club, that's actually a good thing to kind of aim for. But in Brendan's speak, he probably didn't internalize it the greatest. But I feel like this could be a little bit of a slight dig at Brendan, and maybe an explanation as to why he hasn't performed at the comedy mothership just yet, despite him being as close as he is with Rogan and shit. He's still not performed there. It's very, very odd. Most people are saying this, but clearly Joe has definitely got a high threshold of in terms of who he accepts. And if you're not funny, if you're not a particular level, you're not going to perform his club, which I think in the long term will suit his club, would certainly serve his club the best. Personally, I think in the long term. But you know, what do I know when it comes to this stuff? What do I know when it comes to this stuff? Moving on from that one, let's go on this. Let's see if I can find it here. Where is it? Bear with me a second as I get it up on here. It's not that one, it's not this one. Where's this one? It's not that. It's not this. It's not that. Which one is it? There you go. It's this the one, right? Have you guys seen this also? Big up again whoever posted this on the Friday Kid subreddit. I thought this was fucking hilarious. Look at this back and forth with CHAEL, SONNEN and BERT KREISCHER on Twitter. BERT KREISCHER posted, how am I still verified for free at Elon Musk? Because all these flipping famous people on Twitter are doing this annoying thing where they're kind of subtly signaling to people that they've got verification now for free because Elon Musk decided that he would personally pay for the verification of certain people on Twitter, like, you know, LeBron James, Stephen Hill and stuff. Guys and girls who are complaining a lot about having a huge following on Twitter about having to pay for their verification after it all got removed. And I guess part of the troll or the shit post is to kind of act like Elon Musk is paying for your thing, even though you paid for it for yourself, because it doesn't show anywhere on your legacy or anywhere on your blue tick that he didn't or didn't pay for it. So he's trying to piggyback off that thing, right? And then CHAEL, SONNEN out of nowhere says the following: how about all these quasi celebrities who feel the need to tweet that they have a blue check mark but did not pay for it? Their goal, no, how about these who did pay for it have their that have a blue check mark but did not pay for it? Their goal to act confused while actually bragging and hinting Elon personally did something for them is very transparent and equally as annoying as they are. He just comes out of nowhere and just sort of dunks on fucking BERT KREISCHER. I thought that was absolutely amazing. But the sad reality of it, Bert probably loving this, because as much as people dislike the guy, I still think he's probably incredibly more self-aware than most people out there in comedy, because he's always said he always wanted to be famous. He always wanted to be well known. He always kind of wanted to kind of garner the most attention and shit. That's why he kind of, you know, is tapped in so much to this whole marketing side of things that comes to social media and it comes to, you know, promoting himself online. So I don't think he sees this in a bad light at all, but I think this is a good dunkage, a good reminder of who the bad guy and the good guy is. And definitely another reason why I think flipping what's his face, CHAEL, SONNEN is an absolute legend in my opinion. What people are saying in the chat, I'm still saying here, Bappa will never be a comeback story. He's got CTE. Who's gonna get his jokes? Now I think maybe it's my laden Christianity flicking beliefs kicking in here, but I don't know. I feel like there could be a possible redemption arc there. It's probably very, very far down in the future, but I think if he kind of hits enough roadblocks, I reckon he could maybe turn it around. Maybe. It's very unlikely that it would happen, but I'm here for it if it did happen. I'm not gonna lie, I'm here for it. I would like to see it. It'd be somewhat interesting to see introspective, self-aware version of Brendan where he kind of acknowledges some of his mistakes. I wouldn't mind that, to be fair. I think that'd be pretty cool. Talking about acknowledging mistakes, this is courtesy of the Final Kid subreddit. Big up the user that made this or uploaded this, called Television Strong 4388. It's called Brendan Schaub REZ-ERECTION, and it's basically somebody created this stand-up material of Brendan, I guess using OpenAI or some sort of system like that, like ChatGPT sort of shit, and obviously in his type of voice type of thing, but it doesn't really sound too much like him, and it's pretty interesting. This is kind of, you know, his stand-ups, what his stand-up special would sound like if he would take on some of the criticism that people have been leveled at him. Maybe some of the stuff I've spoken about on this live stream or people have spoken about on the flipping Fire the Kid subreddit, and whether or not that would contribute to actually making for a better special. And I feel like some of the material definitely, or some of the bits in here, or premises or topics would work if he decided to do so. But, you know, I know I'm fighting against it, but what I'm saying is true. It's very unlikely we will ever see this version of Brendan on the stage. But I thought this was pretty funny to kind of listen to anyway, regardless. So big up on the Fighting the Kids subreddit, guys, for putting this together. This is pretty cool. This is Brendan Schaub, REZ-ERECTION, allegedly.
Welcome to my first comedy special after Gringo Poppy. I know Gringo Poppy is kind of a mouthful. You might know it by its more common name, which is Unfunny. So this comedy special is called REZ-ERECTION. I'll tell you why I called it that towards the end, after I've hopefully earned back some of your trust and respect.
That's pretty good, isn't it? It kind of sounds like him, but it doesn't. I guess the only thing that's missing is that he doesn't have the, you know, the incorrect pronunciation and shit in his voice. It just sounds a little bit too, you know, he just sounds too well spoken. Basically, this sounds like Brendan Schaub early in the UFC when he's doing press conferences and interviews and shit, and it just sounds way more eloquent than he does nowadays. He's when he talks now, he's you know what I'm saying is true. He legitimately sounds like he's got CTE when he's speaking now, like his brain is legitimately broken. It's deteriorated so much over time, and most of it has kind of been self-inflicted with, like, you know, the booze and shit.
So for those of you who follow me, so around 14 people at this point, you'll know all about the drama that's been happening in my life. For everyone else, this special is to decompress from what I would describe as a living freaking hell and what Theo Von would describe as a totally normal upbringing. So, like, okay, before we begin, there's just like two things I want to say so that this whole special makes sense. So I started off as an MMA fighter, right? And Joe,
I like the canned laughter. That's pretty good.
Rogan is one of my closest friends. I've been on his podcast more than any other guest, right? So one day, Joe Rogan brings me on his show and then tells me to, like, stop being a pro fighter and just be a freaking stand-up comedian, bro. So, like, I was like, seriously, dude? So, like, I said, okay, fine, fuck it. I'll follow your advice and see where it takes me. So basically where it took me was to become named the worst comedian since freaking ever, right? But that's not the worst part. The worst part is that Joe Rogan ended up opening the biggest comedy club on earth in Austin, and then he never freaking invited me.
Can you imagine how much that would kill if he actually did material like this on stage? That would kill so much.
So there's that, right? That freaking bothered me. And the second thing is that I talk a lot about my previous special, which was called Gringo Poppy, voted one of the worst stand-up specials of all time, right? So this special is really for the fans, right? And that's because I've treated my fans like crap. I gave you guys a crappy special, and you guys deserve better. So this special is meant to be like the cure to the disease, which is Gringo Poppy. So you'll hear me talk about my friends a lot, like my famous comedian friends, but like...
Yeah, so I'm just saying, yeah, it's not the... I am seeing in the chat saying it's not the material, it's Bappa. He doesn't have comedic timing or a flow to him. He's just not funny. And you have to get the joke. CTE won't allow him to truly comprehend much. Yeah, that's true. I think that goes back to what what's his name? Ari Shafir said once. I think kind of referencing Brendan. It's just impossible, or it's really difficult to try and make it in stand-up comedy without being a funny person before you started, suddenly in your mid-30s. Because Brendan was never the funny guy. I know he lies and tries to say, oh, I always wanted to be the class clown. I never wanted to be an athlete. It's a lie. He wanted to be an NFL football player. It didn't work out for him. So he pivoted like anybody else does. But he has this inability to admit his mistakes and just own up to stuff. So he kind of always creates these different narratives, as he would say. But he never wanted to be a stand-up comedian. He just wanted to be an athlete. It didn't work out. Cool. So I think Ari Shafir said, if you're that guy and you're just an athlete and you never was the funny person before in school, it's just difficult to go from, you know, not being funny at all and suddenly trying to be funny and be the funny guy on stage and on pod all the time in your mid-30s. It just doesn't work like that, which is why maybe Brendan's at where he's at. Plus, you know, his inability to maybe be introspective, you know, work on his craft, all that sort of stuff. I'm sure it doesn't help either. I'd imagine.
If you don't know who they are or don't follow me, then you may not get this special, which is cool. I just want to say that from the beginning. Anyway, I don't want to go trying too hard in the one profession. Otherwise, Joe Rogan might bring me onto his podcast where millions of people are watching and tell me publicly that I suck and I should now take up carpentry.
This is actually good
and you know
material.
what? If Joe Rogan actually did that and recommended I become a carpenter and that I suck at comedy, he would wait till I got into carpentry. Then he'd move to New York, open the world's biggest carpentry club, and not invite me. So
that's actually pretty decent. As someone said in the chat here, was this? This is not your friend. This is not your friend. Says the picture of SCHULZ is 10 times better than he's ever looked. Of course it is, of course. But that could legitimately be a different lane and a good lane for him to kind of jump on. But I don't think he's ever gonna do that. It's not gonna happen. Never, ever, 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 ever happening, because, you know, he's decided that he is the way he is. He's not gonna change anytime soon. So what can you do? What can you do? So, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to end for now. A bit early than I would have expected. It's a bit late now. It's about 4 a.m. here in sunny old London, and I have to kind of get up and do a bit of running in the morning. So I'm gonna have to end it for now. But I will be back on again later in about, I don't know, 6+ hours or some shit. So if you're still around, sometime in the afternoon here in London, I think it's about what, 12 p.m. in London. So if you're around about 1 p.m. London time, and you want to chill out with the Kai, come back in again. There'll be another random show on where I'll kind of go through all the topics I didn't go through, and we can catch up on some more stuff over there. So for those of you tuning in live to the live stream now, I appreciate every single one of you, and I will see you again very, very soon on this live stream later on in a few hours. So definitely check me out if you haven't before, and we'll definitely do that. So big up everybody in the stream chat for tuning in. I appreciate all of you. Big up Crash 1984. Big up I Am Sin. Big up D1 Under. Big up Johnny Doman. Big up Perk Angel. Or Perk Angle, sorry. Big up This Is Not Your Friend Incorporated. Tom. Who else is on here? Big up Austin Casey, of course. Casey Shuffle. Shades Cow. Who else is here? Bob. Shades Cow. Big up Nunya Bizwax. Josie Masters. Coiler, of course. Big up my guy Coiler. Big up Flora. Big up Jorge Quinones. Is that your name? Jorge Quinones. Sorry if I said it wrong. And a few other people here who I missed out on. I think that's it actually. But everybody, everyone else I missed out on. Apologies, but I appreciate you all. Thank you for tuning in. Been a pleasure, never a chore. And I'll see you back again very, very soon. Take care, my friends. Peace.